In this video, we will discuss the construction of a box and whisker plot using the movie data that were discussed in class. This data comes from the website that you can see on the screen from boxofficemojo.com, and here are the numbers. All the movies that have made at least $100 million in the United States domestically. So here we have movies that went from Die Hard with a Vengeance at number 506 all the way up to Avatar at $760.5 million. To construct the box and whisker plot, we need 5 numbers: the low, the first quartile, the median, the third quartile, and the high. We will also need these other numbers at the bottom, which we will discuss later. The high we see is at Avatar, 760,507,625. The low was at Die Hard with a Vengeance, which was 100,012,499. The next step is to figure out what the median is. To find the median, we use the formula n plus 1 over 2, where n is the number of entries in the data set. In our case, we have 506 things in our list. So 507 divided by 2 is 253.5. This ends in 0.5, of course, because I have an even number here, and so this ends in 0.5. With an even number of entries in the list, there will be 2 numbers in the middle of the list, and so I need to take entries numbers 253 and 254, average those, and that will be the median for this large data set. Well, we see here those are the numbers that I'll need to form the median: Rush Hour and the Blair Witch Project. So to find the median, I need to take the average of 141,186,864 and 140,539,099. Now notice that I have typed this in Excel so that Excel will do the arithmetic for me. I do this because I have an equal sign here in the front. So with this, I hit enter, and there is the median for this group of data. That equal sign is important because if I do not put the equal sign and then hit enter, all I get is this garb of text as opposed to a formula which is supposed to be computed. So there is the median. Now the job is to find the first quartile and the third quartile. The quartiles are found by finding the medians of the top half of the data and then the bottom half of the data. To find the median of the top half of the data from ranks 1 to 253, that would be 253 numbers in that list. So 253 plus 1 over 2 is 254 divided by 2, which is number 127. 253, of course, is an odd number, which means that there will be one single number in the middle of the top half of the list. So going to number 127, there is the quartile. In this case, it's the third quartile for Cars 2 at 191,452,396. Now we have to figure out the first quartile. Before doing that, let me note that this was the third quartile because the numbers that appear in this are going in descending order. If I had them going in ascending order, then number 127 would have been the first quartile instead of the third quartile. Okay, now to get number 127 for the bottom half of the list, the wrong answer would be to take, well, the largest number there would be Blair Witch Project at 140. That's number 254 in the list. So the wrong thing to do would be to take 254 plus 127 to get the rank of the first quartile. Now that's wrong because of the following. Let's imagine that we're listing out these indices in order: 254, 255, 256, all the way down to Die Hard 3 at number 506. Well, 254 would be the largest number in the list. Then this would be the second largest. This will be the third largest, and the job is to figure out the 127th largest. We see that 254 and 1, the difference of these two numbers is 253. Likewise, the difference of these two numbers is 253. And so I need the rank here, so the difference between these two numbers would be 253. Clearly that number would be 127 plus 253, which is 380. So number 380 in this list would be the first quartile. So that is going to be Green Lantern. Let me mark that. And that is the first quartile. 116,601,172. Next, before constructing the box and whisker plot, we need to figure out the cutoffs for the possible outliers and the probable outliers. To begin, we figure out the IQR, which stands for the interquartile range, which is a fancy way of saying figure out the difference between the first quartile and the third quartile. So that means I need to take the third quartile minus the first quartile. Now notice that Microsoft Excel allows me to reference those two cells. It is not necessary to completely retype those two 8-digit numbers. You can just simply reference the cell numbers, and when I hit enter, I get the difference of those two things. Next, to find the cutoffs for the possible outliers and the probable outliers, I take, on the top end, we'd have Q3 plus 1.5 times the interquartile range. So this marks the possible outliers. And so that gives me 303,729,232. Looking at the list, so here's my medians I just passed. There's the third quartile I just passed. And going up to 303 million. So Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, that is inside this number, but this number is outside. So let me mark that as a possible outlier. Now the possible outliers go from this number to Q3 plus 3 times the interquartile range, which should be equal to B4 plus 3 times the interquartile range, which in this spreadsheet would be B7. So that takes me to $416 million and change. So the cutoff there would be 416 would take me to Toy Story 3. So the ones that I'm highlighting here in the light green are going to be the possible outliers, and then these top 9 numbers, which are even bigger than 416 million, would be the probable outliers. Now, technically, I have to do this for the bottom half of the data as well. I need to take Q1 minus 1.5 times the interquartile range and Q1 minus 3 times the interquartile range. So rather than starting at this number going up, I start at this number but go down. So that would be Q1 minus 1.5 times the interquartile range. So that's $4 million. And then if I go even further down, that would be Q1 minus 3 times the interquartile range, which would be a negative number. Now clearly all of the numbers in the list are bigger than 100 million. That's 4 million, and so clearly there are not going to be any outliers less than Q1. So finally, we put all this together in the box and whisker plot. For the sake of clarity of presentation, I'm having the computer program Mathematica draw the box and whisker plot rather than attempting to do this by hand. And here is the box and whisker plot. So notice that there is a box right here. The median is 140 million something. The first quartile is 116 million. The 75% the third quartile is 191 million. The min and the max are given. You can see that on the screen. So the median is here, the first quartile is here, the third quartile is here, and there are no outliers at the bottom. However, there are outliers at the top. The pluses are the probable outliers, so the pluses represent the green numbers that we see over here, while the stars up here represent the probable outliers. So there should be 9 little stars up there, and there should be about, so there's 10 to 36, so there should be 27 pluses that are bunched from here to here. Now one last technical point about this is the location of where this line goes. This line that you see right here does not correspond to this number here, 303. The line corresponds to the largest movie that is inside of this number here. In other words, the line goes to an actual number in the list, not to that cutoff value. So the line that you see here corresponds to 301,959,197 for Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. So that is the way to construct a box and whisker plot. We have the 5-number summary. We also have to worry about the cutoffs for the possible outliers and also the probable outliers.